Hey crew, it's Pitt, and I'm back with some more Esoterica. Today we're diving back into the works of Mr. Aleister Crowley. This is Liber IV. We are reading aloud and discussing as we go along the various points brought to light by the text. It is not the format for everyone, but people do find value in it, so you are more than welcome to tag along as we continue our exploration. Before we begin, however, if you are unfamiliar with me, any of my unconventional beliefs, or if at any point in time I lose you in terminology, there will be several playlists linked in the corner above and the box down below, along with the original source material and the link for my book where I teach you to do magic responsibly, so that you can get a better understanding of who I am and why I say the things that I do. We're going to dive in and continue our exploration of Liber IV with Part 3, Chapter 0, The Magical Theory of the Universe. It is interesting to note the difference between his Chapter 0 and mine, and those of you who have read the book will definitely note the difference. There are three main theories of the universe: dualism, monism, and nihilism. Alright, so let's talk about it. Dualism is the difference between body and soul, right? There is the belief that there are two states of existence: the illusionary mind and the physical reality of the world. Monism is that everything is one existence with no separation. Therefore, matter and mind are really the same thing. All is an illusion. Nihilism is that everything doesn't even exist. It is all a figment of the imagination. There is no corporealism and nothing actually matters. That is the difference between all of these right now. What I believe is a little bit of an amalgamation between them. It is not any of them in its fullness. I do believe that everything is one. We all come from the same thing. That is the first law of creation. There, you can neither create nor destroy. All things is just a matter of transfer, right? We talk about that many times. And that's a little bit like monism, but I also believe that the corporeal is real and that the mind is separate from the body, and that's a little bit like dualism. But I also believe that we have a purpose here, and the purpose makes up the third part of that, right? The mind, everything is one. That is true. The second law of creation is that all things contain both male and female, creative and destructive. That would be dualism. And then I believe that we are here for a purpose, and that is anti-nihilism. It is kind of a blend of the first two, right? We are all in one existence, existing as separate beings. That is a blend of the first two, and I completely dismiss this last one as victim mentality. It is part of what is intrinsically wrong with the entire system of magic that Mr. Crowley is doing, right? He was definitely a nihilist. Even if he doesn't describe himself as one, you can see it through the fruit of his life that he did not actually believe that this was a reality. It is impossible to enter into a discussion of their relative merits in a popular manual of this sort. That's not true at all. They may be studied in Erdmann's History of Philosophy and similar treatises. I have not read Erdmann's History of Philosophy. All are reconciled and unified in the theory which we shall now set forth. The basis of this harmony is given in Crowley's Bereshith, to which reference should be made. Infinite space is called the goddess Nuit, while the infinite small and atomic yet omnipresent point is called Hadit. Now, all right, let's see what is. I present this theory in a very simple form. I cannot even explain, for instance, that an idea may not refer to being at all, but to going. The Book of the Law demands special study and immediate apprehension. All right, so he has created this goddess Nuit and Hadit, right? I am fairly positive that they were not actually deities anywhere else, but he may have stolen them from Egyptian mythology. I don't think so. I think that this was something that he pulled whole cloth out of his ass. I'm not going to bother looking it up. It's not all that important. It is the concept behind it which is actually the important part, and that is quite literally the second law of creation. Right? Now, in the video, which I'm going to link up top, I have them in the wrong order. I got a better revelation later on into the proper order. The oneness being one makes sense. The duality being two makes sense. And so the duality is this, right? Both the infinite possibility of the void and the finite creation of the infinite point. Both of those are the duality. All things create, both positive and negative, creation and destruction, masculine and feminine. It is intrinsic to everything that it be in there. There is both the absorptive void, which is the feminine, black, and there is the penetrative masculine, the infinitely small point, which penetrates through the void, which is the masculine element, right? This is intrinsic to life. I fully believe that. But to put a name upon it is arbitrary. It can be yin yang. It can be. There are several other ones. I don't have them in my mind right now because it's not all that important. But it is important to remember that there is both the masculine and the feminine. It is not important what you name them, right? There is no real name for either one of the concepts, and they are not a god in and of themselves at all. They are concepts, but to put upon them goddess or god is to anthropomorphize them in a way that should not be, or to deify them in a way that should not be. Both of these are primary constituents of the Holy Spirit, God. Now, is it God in his fullness? No, it is God in his limitedness of the creation. We are inside of the Spirit. The Spirit is the oneness, all of the things. The separation is the duality, the separation between the things, good and bad. And so both of those things are true at the same time. These are unmanifest. Yes, they are not manifest gods. One conjunction of these infinites is Kara-Hor-Kuit. Let's make up some words. Right? Ra is the English god, and I don't even think Kuit is. More correctly, Hiru Raha, to include Horparkrat, hypocrite. A unity which includes and heads all things. The basis of this theology is given in Liber 220, Alveligus, which forms part 4 of this book 4. Hence, I can only outline the matter in a very crude way. It would require a separate treatise to discuss even the true meaning of the terms employed, and to show how the Book of the Law anticipates the recent discoveries of Frege, Cantor, Poincare, Russell, Whitehead, Einstein, and others. You should have extrapolated. Once again, I am taking exception, right? If you are going to place in here recent discoveries by these people, there should be at least something to reference what those are. Now, most of us are familiar with Einstein. I am not positive that this was during the period of relativity, right? This is well before the Manhattan Project, at least in the first edition. This may be a pickup later, right? We did have a 1912 reference point, and then we definitely had some reference points after that, so there were multiple editions of this book. Either way, right? Either way, even if this is the second or third edition, it should have been added later. You should have put what this is. This is one of those cultural references that loses its significance through the passage of time. We saw that in the study yesterday. We are seeing it again here. I cannot correct him in this, but if you go to write something like this and you are going to reference these, then you should say what they are, right? At least in brief, at least so we know the point of reference. Einstein had quite a few discoveries, right? Now, these other people I'm not entirely sure of. Russell, I know, may be one of the ones that we have done, right? Bertrand Russell. Whitehead, I'm not positive about. Something like these, I don't know. I don't know who they are. I don't know what they did. Frege, Cantor, Poincare. Maybe if you were versed in science, right? If you have gone to school for these things, you probably know who these guys are. But for the layman who is going to be reading this book, this is something they would have to go look at. And nowadays, we've got the internet, right? We can look it up. Back in the day, it was not that easy. You could go to a library and they may or may not have the information you were looking for. And so, if you are going to do this, be as clear as you can. Be as concise as you can. All of this extra floofly stuff, it's not necessary. This Hiru Raha Horparkarat, right? That's some made-up shit that he is just adding in there because it sounds esoteric. It doesn't have any real significance. It does not matter which one of these random sounds that you happen to attribute to this God. It doesn't, because one, you are not addressing the God, and two, it doesn't matter. All right. There is also a particular nature of him in certain conditions, such as have obtained since the spring of 1904. This profoundly mystical conception is based upon actual spiritual experience, but the trained reason can reach a reflection of this idea by the method of logical contradiction, which ends in reason transcending itself. What? Okay, the particular nature of him is this God, I guess. Actual, but yeah, okay, whatever. Let's see what the footnote is here. All advance in understanding demands the acquisition of a new point of view. That is absolutely true, right? Without the realization of the new path, you cannot take the new path. And once upon a time, somebody came up with math, chemistry, and physics. And modern conceptions of mathematics, chemistry, and physics are a sheer paradox to the plain man, who thinks matter is something that one can knock up against. All right, let's do it. It's been a while since we've hammered this particular point home, but you can't actually ever touch anything. I know, that sounds counterintuitive. What do you mean? I can pick up this phone. No, you can't. Right? There is a cosmic's not the right word. There is a atomic level separation between you and the matter outside of you. You are held together by the magnetics of the elements which are within you. You are comprised of many elements, right? Oxygen, nitrogen, carbon. All of these things make up who you are, but they also make up the air that surrounds you, and they make up this phone. The air is held separate from you by the electromagnetics of you and the electromagnetics of the air. The phone is the same thing. Each one of these particular items has their own magnetic resonance that holds them into the configuration in which they are. You can never actually touch anything. There is a microscopic, and by microscopic I mean microscopic, separation on an atomic level between you and the matter that you are attempting to touch. Whenever you have a phone firmly grasped in your hand, even at the point where it is tightest, there is still air between there. There is still separation between you. It is a microscopic separation, but if it was not there, when you went to pick this up, you would blend right into it, much like reaching into water or pushing through the air. Now, when you push through the air, you push the air around you. When you push into the water, you push the water around you. So it's not a one-on-one correlation, but it'll give you a good interface to work with. You do not actually touch anything. It is held apart from you by a separation on an atomic level. My atoms are repulsing these atoms, right? That is an important thing to remember in the concept of the oneness, right? The spirit is quite literally every single element in existence all at the exact same time. The logos is those undergoing change, time happening, motion doing, heat made, light seen, right? All of these things are the manifestation of the logos. The separation that is us is by the direct will of the Creator. He has decided that I shall be here, right now, in this body, in this temple, walking around in this 5D space, navigating and doing the things which I am called to do. But there is a separation between me and the air. It is a very thin one. The skin drinks air. It drinks water. If you are severely dehydrated, you submerge yourself in water, your skin will drink that water. It is part of the process. You can also become intoxicated by things that touch your skin. That is an absorptive thing on a chemical level. It is through the process of the logos that happens. It is assimilated into you in the same way that breathing assimilates oxygen into other parts of you. When you breathe, you are separating a part of the outside inside of you. If you hold your breath, you have separated that part, this part of the spirit from that part of the spirit, and that is separate from the other part of the spirit, but they are all still the spirit. While you are separated from the other things by this atomic level bond, you can still interact with them in multitude of ways, and that is entirely up to the laws of physics, right? The absorption through the skin, that doesn't happen with the phone, right? It depends upon the harmonics of the thing and whether it is harmonic with you and a wide variety of things. But this right here, matter is something one can knock up against is you can't, right? It seems like you can, but even to the nth level, it is an atomic repulsion. It is not the actual thing, right? You're not touching the individual atoms, that you are being held away from them by the magnetics of the thing. That's a little bit hard for some people to understand, but it is kind of how it works. So, in the same way, right, we'll go ahead and hit this too. Like, you don't actually see the color blue in this blue phone case. This phone case is every color except blue. Every other color except blue is absorbed because it matches the harmonic. The color that is reflected is the part that it is not actually. And so here's something for you racists out there. And if you are making big deal about your skin color, it is actually the opposite color. You're looking at it negative. The reader should consult The Soldier and the Hunchback and Equinox 1:1 and Kong Som Pax. Unity transcends consciousness. It is above all division. The father of thought, the word, is called chaos. That is not the dyad, right? That is not a horrible way of looking at it, right? Chaos is not intrinsically bad. There is chaos taking place in you. It allows you to grow. There is chaos that takes place in the plants that you eat that allows them to grow. The process of growth requires something to die. They have to come out of the comfort zone to stretch. All of these things are true. And so the word is, what did we just say? The spirit placed into motion when God spoke and said, I am the light. He didn't say, let there be light. He said, I am the light. And it was good. Right? When he spoke, the logos became. The moment before the beginning, there was God, and God was infinite and without form, the void. And God decided to become, and therefore limited himself from the infinite into the finite. That moment of limiting was the beginning, and he became the Spirit. The Spirit was all of the elements in perfect stasis, like taking a picture of creation. Every element existing, but not yet bonded. No waters, no hydrogen oxides, right? No combinations of the elements until the logos became. And then chaos was and light was. And this was true, right? And that is what made. All of the elements were there, but until the movement of the fire, there was no things. And now, because of the movement, there are things. Those things are because of chaos, right? The moment of perfect stasis is the opposite of chaos. It is perfection, right? The spirit at the moment of creation was perfection. And then God introduced chaos by saying, I am the light, and becoming the light. I am the waters above and the waters below. And he became these things. That is how Genesis reads if you actually do the word study. And so this is not a bad way of thinking about it. And even the dyad, it is not a bad way of thinking about that. That's kind of how I describe it in here. The monad is the spirit. The duad is the logos. It is the movement of things. Back to the text. The number 3, the mother, is called Babylon. That is a fucking lie. That is a bald-faced lie said by a Satanist who was definitely doing satanic things. Now, I fully understand that he would not identify himself as that, but we have found in this book that he is, right? We have seen him claim for himself Our Lady Babylon, the great whore that rides the beast, and he attributes to himself being the beast of Revelation, which is a wild claim. But all of the women in his life, fall back to the wiki, he called all of them the Scarlet Woman. What was the Scarlet Woman? The whore of Babylon, the personification of all sin, right? It's not about this city over in the Middle East. The spirit of Babylon is quite literally debauchery and fornication and overconsumption. It is the complete unbalance of all the vices. It is everything intrinsically wrong with man glorified. That is what Babylon is. And to call the mother, that is fucking wild. If he was here, I might get violent. It is on that level. That offends me to that level. And I am not that easy to offend. There are things that you can do to offend me, and they all involve my God. Right? You can say things about my wife, and I won't be happy about it, but as long as you ain't putting your hands on it, it'll be all right. Right? I will tolerate an awful lot these days. Fuck around with my God and see what happens. I'm just saying. And this right here, you could not spit on God any harder. You could not shit in the face of God any harder than to say that the mother is the whore of all the world. That is absolutely fucking wild. Now, the better way of looking at this would be that the father and the mother are the unity, and the duad would be the son, right? Even that is personifying God beyond the point where it should happen. There should not be a conception of that as an actual human. God is not a human. We may or may not be created in the image of God. Dogs might be. Chickens might be. We do not know, and we will never know. The attribution of human-like qualities to God is a thing that we do. This right here, right? Seeing the logos as the separation, that works, right? Identifying the mother as the whore of Babylon is completely wild. Like, it's terrible. But it is not, again, it is not to be unexpected, because he identifies himself as evil, right? Claiming for yourself the whore of Babylon is evil, because the whore of Babylon is intrinsically evil, right? Claiming for yourself to be the beast of Revelation is evil, because the beast of Revelation is intrinsically evil. It is here for the antithesis of life, for the opposition of the Creator's plan. That is the whole concept of the beast. And I don't believe that there will be an actual beast or a whore of Babylon, right? This is the spirit that you are claiming for yourself. And that's the hard part here. If you identify the whore of Babylon with yourself, you are identifying yourself with the epitome of evil. If you are taking Aleister Crowley's works and putting them into practice, you are claiming the same thing for yourself. Back to the text. In connection with this, the reader should study the Temple of Solomon the King, and I have a Bible study that will tell you why that's probably a bad idea. In Equinox 1:5 and Liber 4:18. This first triad is essentially unity in a matter transcending reason. The comprehension of this Trinity is a matter of spiritual experience. All true gods are attributed to this Trinity. Considerations of the Christian Trinity are of a nature suited only to initiates of the 9 degrees of OTO, as they enclose the final secret of all practical magic. There is no difference between the Christian Trinity and any other Trinity: mind, body, and soul, Father, Son, and Mother, light, dark, and whatever else. Like, all of these things are the Trinity. The Trinity is inseparable from the concept, and the concept is creation, destruction, the mutual logos. That is the Trinity. Body, mind, spirit, that's the same thing. Logos would be the spirit. The physical incarnation would be the mother, which is impregnated. The father spirit, which comes in, is the part that makes the decisions, the soul. So soul, body, and the soul, body, and spirit being the Trinity as well. There is no separation. If you have an understanding by which it is different, you have the wrong understanding. An immeasurable abyss divides it from all manifestations of reason or the lower qualities of man. In the ultimate analysis of reason, we find all reason identified with this abyss. Yet this abyss is the crown of the mind. Purely intellectual faculties all obtain here. Okay, the abyss has no number, for in it all is confusion. This is going to be intrinsically opposite, right? We find all reason identified with the abyss is a not. It is the exact opposite. You find reason from the discovery inside of the abyss, not identified with the abyss. The abyss is infinite. There is no definite inside the infinite. Are we okay here? All right. Now, in order to actually identify reason, then you have to practically apply, which is the application of force, which is the masculine property. That would be the infinite point, not the infinite space. Therefore, reason comes from the infinite point, the masculine, penetrative discovering of the thing inside the void. The abyss's number is 0. It is also 8. And if that is confusing, I got a book of reference for you. Below this abyss, we find the moral qualities of man, of which there are 6, wrong. The highest is symbolized by the number 4, wrong. Its nature is fatherly. Each conception is, however, balanced in itself. That part is true. 4 is Alodeleth, the letter of Venus, so that the mother idea is included. Again, the Sephira of 4 is Kesed, referred to water. 4 is ruled by Jupiter, lord of lightning, fire, yet ruler of air. Each Sephira is complete in its way. Mercy and authority are the attributes of dignity. All right, let's talk about it because this is wrong. There are 7 moral qualities. There are 7 virtues and 7 vices. I have a video, it's part of the Bible study, which is called The 7 Facets of God, and by which I discovered this. Right now, the Bible is not true, but it contains great truth, and one of the great truths that it contains is that both of these facets belong to God. And by both, I mean both sides of the coin, that is, these moral qualities. There is a moral quality of wrath and love. It governs the base, and it is mere existence, right? There is a balance between those, that is existence. Love and wrath is acceptance, I believe is what that one is. And then you have the next one up is going to be lust and chastity. These are coins, right? There is the overconsumption of the things of the sexual nature and the underconsumption of the things of the sexual nature, and neither one is good. The appropriate use of sexual energy is what you are meant to do, right? Finding the balance. The next up is temperance and gluttony. Overconsumption of the things, underconsumption of the things. Neither are intrinsically good. Next up in the heart, you have charity and greed, right? Whether you are giving away your time or you are keeping it is the key to charity. Even money is time. Money is an exchange for time. Then you have pride and humility, governed by the throat. Taking too much credit for things, speaking that you're better than you are, or not taking enough credit and speaking that you're not good enough. Neither one is intrinsically good. You are meant to be the balance between those things. Right? And then you've got sloth and diligence, governed by the third eye. This is whether you are working towards your goals or whether you are expecting them to show up. And it is not going to show up if you are not working towards it. The perfect balance of this is going to be patience. And then you have hope and despair, which is the seventh of these qualities. Right? And that is whether you find the silver lining or whether you decide it's going to be a shitty day when everything is going great. These are the coins. They are intrinsic to God. I haven't found an 8th one. I have searched quite hard. Most of the things that would be considered past that are part of these things. It stands to reason, right? If you bring me something, I can probably slot it into one of these 7. Either one side or the other of the coin. And there is a balance to be stricken. You are not meant to overconsume of the virtues or the vices, right? The moral qualities of man are 7. Not 6, not 8, 7. There are 14 or 7 coins making 14 attributes. 7. That is important because the 8th point in that is the infinite, and it has all of the virtues and all of the vices in perfect balance, right? Making a total of 8. And so this is not correct, right? Now, 4 being Daleth, we are doing the Bible or the Hebrew study with Jason from Green Country Agroforestry at noon on Saturdays Central Time here on the channel. We are exploring the Hebrew alphabet and the meanings behind it. We have already dealt with Daleth, I believe. I think that was Mother. It might have been Daughter. I'm still learning, right? I am not an expert. Jason is much better at these things than I am. That's why he is the one doing it for us. And so, but it says the mother here, so I'm going to go with that. Now, that is the tie together. There are 3 in the lower trinity. There are 3 in the upper trinity. The base, the sacral, the solar plexus is the as below trinity. The throat, the third eye, and the crown is the as above trinity. The heart ties these together, the as below and the as above. The heart is symbolized by the number 4. And so this can be true, just not in the way that he is describing it. All right. And then mercy and authority are the attributes of his dignity. That is not an attribute. Right? I mean, I guess between love and wrath, you could probably find mercy. I do not know where authority would slot in, probably in the balance between pride and humility. But like these are not attributes in and of themselves. There is no attribute of authority, right? There is no attribute of mercy. There is the attribute of love, and the fruit of love is mercy. There is the attribute of, well, I mean, what would it be? Would it be between greed and charity that you would find authority, because that would be the proper application of material things? Or would it be sloth and diligence, right? It would slot in somewheres, but it's not its own. The number 5 is balanced against 4 for some reason. The attributes of 5 are energy and justice. No. 4 and 5 are again combined and harmonized in the number 6, whose nature is beauty and harmony, mortality and immortality. The number 7 is the feminine nature is again predominant, but it is the masculine type of the female, the Amazon, who is balanced in the number 8 by the feminine type of the male. In the number 9, we reach the last of the purely mental qualities. It identifies change with stability. Pendant to the 6-fold system is the number 10. The balance of the sever, like, there is just so much wrong there that I don't even have a point of reference to begin, right? Like, I am sure that he had some point of reference for these. It was probably antiquity, and it was probably wrong. And the balance of the Sephiroth. Kether, 1. Kether is in Malkuth, and Malkuth is in Kether, but after another manner. Kokma, 2, is Yod of Tetragrammaton, and therefore also unity. Why? These are 2 different words, or 2 different letters, right? This is one letter in Hebrew, and this is another letter in Hebrew. Why is this letter actually this letter in the Tetragrammaton, and therefore also unity? Oh, because you want it to be, just for any reason whatsoever? Okay, fine, whatever. Bina, 3, is he of the Tetragrammaton, and therefore the emperor. Except that I'm pretty sure Bina is female. Right? I'm going to have to go back and watch the Hebrew study again, because I'm pretty sure we've done Bina, and I think it's female. Kased, 4, is Daleth, Venus, the female. Gabora, 5, is the Sephira of Mars, the male. Tiphereth, 6, is the hexagram, harmonizing and mediating between Kether and Malkuth. It also reflects Kether. That which is above is like that which is below, and that which is below is like that which is above. That would be the wrong reference point for that. We just talked about that, right? The tie together is the heart, that is 4, the as below and the as above are the trinities of manifestation, right? Here's how it works, right? You're here, let's talk. In the base, that is an identification point. It is the same in the crown. It is identifying what the divine is telling you, right? Next, you have your directional point, where you set your intentions, and that is your third eye, by which you envision your future, and your sacral, which is the point of generation in the physicality. These are the directional points where you set the intention for your manifestation. You draw the energy from your realization point, you move it through the directional point, and then you draw it into the amplification point, which is the throat and the solar plexus. The throat is where you speak aloud your desires. It amplifies them. The stomach is where you turn your food into fuel. You amplify it. That is The method by which this works, right? You pull the energy from the top and the bottom, you direct it with your third eye and your sacral, you amplify it with the throat, with the throat and the solar plexus, and then you direct it, right? You move that energy out into your heart, which does all of them, right? It feeds into your divine and creates the manifestation for you. These individual trinities, the as below, is made up of the greater trinity. The base is base existence, right? That is matter. The directional is making the decision. That is going to be the sacral and the third eye. That is making the decision. That is going to be you as the soul. The amplification part, that is the spirit. The heart is the spirit, right? And so you have the bottom trinity, which contains the greater trinity, represents the earthly things, the material, the body. You have the upper trinity, which makes the decisions for you. That represents the soul. And then you have the heart and the divine, which represents the spirit. So there is a trinity within a trinity within a trinity, making a trinity out of you, right? A multiplicative of the trinity, adding up to 9 even, or multiplied into 9 even. And so that is how this works. Right? That is as simple as I can make it. The instructions are in this book. According to that, you pull the energy in that way. That is how manifestation happens, at least on the path that I have found. Now, I'm not saying I have the only path. You can do these terrible things that Mr. Crowley did. You can have this understanding and you will probably get results. My contention is that I have better results through my practice. That doesn't mean that other ones don't work, right? But for me, this is the part that has worked. And I am sure, right, especially considering my tarot readings, right, I have some self-imposed restrictions in here that keeps me probably from achieving greater than I have. That is something that I am still working through. It is something that I do plan on working through because there is more that you can claim. But the motivations have to be right, and that is the major sticking point for me on manifesting actual physicality or dealing with the entities. Like, there are self-imposed restrictions that I have to get past in this process, but it is not the energy work. That part I've got. That part I am fairly good upon, right? I have affected actual change in physicality in my body. Right? I've healed my throat. That is real. I healed my shoulder. That is real. I healed my back. That is real. Today, right? I'm recording this. Y'all will see it tomorrow. But today is August the 28th. Today makes 4 months to the day since my leg was broken. I've been running, right? For the last week and a half. Not extensively, right? I'm building back up my stamina. But I'm running 4 months into a broken leg. How many people do you know that's able to do that? How many people do you know that is able to get up and go 4 months in after a very major break? It's not many, and I contend that the only reason I can do it is because of the magic that I have done. This broken leg has allowed me to understand this process even better than what I wrote. It amplified to me the effectiveness of my procedure. And while I do not want to sound heady, I try to maintain humility. This has worked. I have results that he could only dream about. I do not speak idly about these things. I do have an understanding. It may not be the only understanding, but it is definitely one that works. All right. Malkuth 10 contains all the numbers, which includes the whole of matter as we know it by the senses. It is impossible here to explain thoroughly the complete conception, for it cannot be too clearly understood, that this is a classification of the universe, that there is nothing which is not comprehended therein. The article on the Kabbalah in Volume 1, Number 5 of the Equinox is the best in which has been written on the subject. It should be deeply studied in connection with the Kabbalistic diagrams in Numbers 2 and 3, the Temple of Solomon the King. We are doing the study with Jason. All right, I've mentioned that. Y'all tune in Saturdays noon Central Time. We are doing that study in anticipation of actually investigating the Kabbalah. Now, the Kabbalah is based upon Judaism. Judaism, to me, is fundamentally flawed. It is not to be taken as a literal reference on how to act in a moral way whatsoever. Right? There is many reasons for contention in that, but you can take parts of it as an allegory for good things, and it does work, and some of that may transfer over to the Kabbalah, and so I will be doing at least a partial study. I don't know when that is going to happen. I want a much firmer grasp over the Hebrew before we dive into that, and I am not nearly there yet. But that is coming, right? I say that to say that I don't just completely dismiss Kabbalah. There are obviously some things that can be pulled from it. People have been using it as an enlightenment path for thousands of years, or at least hundreds. But that is also with the understanding that most of them do not have the results that I do. And so while there may be wisdom to pull from there, I am not sure that it is the full wisdom that we need. Right? I do believe that I have placed something in this book. It is my path that I have used to achieve the things that I have. Alright. Such is a crude and elementary sketch of this system. The formula of the Tetragrammaton is the most important for the practical magician. Here, Yod equals 2, Hey equals 3, Vow equals 4 to 9. Are you kidding me? Hey, final equals 10. I know, he did not come up with this, but no. Right? You got 2 and 3, that makes 5, and you got vow, and that's 4 to 9. So just 5 by itself so that it can make 10. And once again, I will point out that gematria, the complicated mathematics based upon this number assignment system in Yiddish or Hebrew or whatever it's called, doesn't matter. It doesn't do anything. If you are doing complicated mathematics, you're probably doing it wrong. And if you are trying to divine from adding together letters from this understanding of a name, it is almost certainly going to be wrong. There is not a whole lot of wisdom that you're going to be able to pull out, and it is entirely subjective, right? I like to use this example because it is so prevalent these days. If you think that Donald Trump is the Antichrist, you can prove that by these numbers. And if Donald Trump doesn't add up correctly, you can say Donald John Trump, or you can say Donald J. Trump, or you can say DJ Trump, or you can say Donald, like you can make it work. Like you can make it work. And that's the problem with gematria. Right? You are making it work in every single instance. There is pretty much no instance by which any true wisdom has been revealed through gematria that I am aware of. And so whenever we get to these complicated mathematics, I do kind of dismiss it out of hand. The number 2 represents Yod. And that is not to say that numbers are not important. Simple numbers are. Right? If you see the number 1, that is letting you know, like if you see the number 1 and repeat, like 111, 1111, right? That is letting you know something. That is saying, hey, look, there is a brand new path that you are not aware of. If you're seeing 2222, that is telling you, hey, look, you've got a choice to make. Right? If it's 333, there is something to learn about this situation. 444, you're not understanding something. 555, hey, look, a challenge has arisen. I believe that that is true. Right? These things are not necessarily divinatory, however, right? I'm not doing complicated mathematics. If I am driving down the road and I see a license plate that says 111, I'm not automatically saying, oh, look, there's a new path, right? But if I look and there's this license plate here, and then on this billboard over here is 111, and then I look over here on this building and it's 111, then maybe I've got a message, right? It is not to be taken as divinatory in the way that, oh my God, there's a 111. Obviously, there's a brand new path right here. Right? There are considerations to be had, but these things do have significance in your life. And if you are seeing repeating patterns of numbers, it's probably telling you something. But if you have to add those numbers together, it's probably not. The number 2 represents Yod, the divine or archetypal world, and the number 1 is only attained by the destruction of the god and the magician in Samadhi. The world of angels is under the numbers 4 to 9, and that of the spirits under the number 10. So angels are not spirits, you say? It is not possible to give a full account of the 22 paths in this condensed sketch. They should be studied in view of all of their attributes in 777, but more especially that in that which they are attributed to the planets, elements, and signs, as also are the tarot trumps, while their position on the tree itself and their position as links between the particular Sephiroth which they join is the final key to their understanding. It will be noticed that each chapter of this book is attributed to one of them. This was not intentional. This book was originally but a collection of haphazard dialogues between Frater P and Soror A, but on arranging the manuscript they fell naturally and of necessity into this division. Conversely, my knowledge of the schema pointed out to me on numerous gaps in my original exposition. Thanks to this, I have been able to make it a complete and systemic treatise, that is, when my laziness has been jogged by the criticisms and suggestions of various colleagues to whom I had submitted the early drafts. I don't know if I believe that was not intentional. I have 9 chapters in this book. It begins with chapter 0, it goes to chapter 9. The very first one, chapter 0, is where the source came from, right? It is the story of me. Then we have the realization of the path. That is chapter 1. Then we have the choices that I made to get there. That is chapter 2. Then we have things that I learned along the way. That is chapter 3. Then we have the greater understandings that I got. That is chapter 4. You see the pattern here? I intentionally set out to match my numbers to the chapters so that it would be the path on the way for the understanding. Right? That was intrinsic to the writing of this book. And I guess I shouldn't find it too surprising that he didn't have the same intentionality, because honestly his intentionality was lacking in many places. Back to the text. All these numbers are, of course, parts of the magician himself, considered as the microcosm. The microcosm is an exact image of the macrocosm. The great work is the raising of the whole man in perfect balance to the power of infinity. I do not disagree with this, even though his understanding of it was not correct. Raising the man in perfect balance is definitely the goal. The reader will remark that all criticism directed against the magical hierarchy is futile. One cannot call it incorrect. Bullshit. The only line to take might be that it was inconvenient. In the same way, one cannot say that the Roman alphabet is better or worse than the Greek, since all required sounds can be more or less satisfactorily represented by either. Yet both these alphabets were found so little satisfactory when it came to an attempt at phonetic printing of Oriental languages, that the alphabet had to be expanded by the use of italics and other diacritical marks. In the same way, our magical alphabet of the Sephiroth and the paths, 32 letters as it were, has been expanded into the 4 worlds corresponding to the 4 letters of the name Yod-He-Vav-He. I used to use this word as the name of God. I have learned since that is not a good idea for a variety of reasons. Right? 1 being that God has no name. 2 being that this particular thing was an entity in the Middle East that may still be existent today, who was a blood-drinking demon. And each Sephira is supposed to contain a tree of life of its own. Thus, we obtained 400 Sephiroth instead of the original 10, and the paths being capable of similar multiplications, or rather of subdivision, the number is still further extended. Of course, this process might be indefinitely continued without destroying the original system. The apologia for this system is that our purest conceptions are symbolized in mathematics. God is the great arithmetician. God is the grand geometer. It is best, therefore, to prepare to apprehend him by formulating our minds according to these measures. By God, I here mean the ideal identity of a man's inmost nature. Something ourselves, I erase Arnold's imbecile and guilty not, that makes for righteousness. Righteousness being rightly defined as internal coherence. Internal coherence implies that which is written detigitoriode. The return. Each letter of this alphabet may have its special magical sigil. The student must not expect to be given a cut and dry definition of what exactly is meant by any of all of this. On the contrary, he must work backwards, putting the whole of his mental and moral outfit into these pigeonholes. You would not expect to be able to buy a filing cabinet with the names of all your past, present, and future correspondents already indexed. Your cabinet has a system of letters and numbers, meaningless in themselves, but ready to take on a meaning to you as you fill up the files. As your business increased, each letter and number would receive fresh accessions of meaning to you, and by adopting this orderly arrangement, you would be able to have a much more comprehensive grasp of your affairs than would otherwise be the case. By the use of this system, the magician is able, ultimately, to unify the whole of his knowledge, to transmute, even on the intellectual plane, the many into the one. The reader can now understand that the sketch given above of the magical hierarchy is hardly even an outline of the real theory of the universe. Let's hit that 3 times. This theory may indeed be studied in the article already referred to in number 5 of the Equinox, and more deeply in the Book of the Law and the commentaries thereon. But the true understanding depends entirely upon the work of the magician himself. Without magical experiences, it would be meaningless. That is true, right? I tell you all of the time that I can relay my experience, I cannot give it. Right? It is by relaying it, I show you the path by which I have trod. You are welcome to try to find the same path or one parallel to it with correlations between them. I give you the things that have happened to me. I cannot give you the experience of it. I am merely a guidepost, a light set upon a hill so that you can find a direction towards a safe place. I do not claim to have the only pathway. I do know that my pathway is effective, and it is open to everyone. There are not very many special exceptions to that. I mean, Aleister probably wouldn't have been able to walk the path that I am on. It is a narrow path. It is requiring self-discipline to the nth degree. I mean, you have to be in control of yourself. But you only gain that control through experience, through the understanding which comes from experience. And so while I can relay you the path, I cannot give you the path. I can relay the experience, I cannot give you the experience. Only you can go and do. And by doing, you can get the experience. In this, there is nothing peculiar. It is so with all scientific knowledge. And there is a saying that I love. I say it all of the time because it is so very true. Knowledge earned is knowledge learned. Knowledge given is freely forgotten. Right? If I tell you, you'll let it go. But if you earn it, you'll hold on to that shit. A blind man might cram up astronomy for the purpose of passing examinations, but his knowledge would be almost entirely unrelated to his experience, and it would certainly not give him sight. A similar phenomenon is observed when a gentleman who has taken an honors degree in modern languages at Cambridge arrives in Paris and is unable to order his dinner. To exclaim against the master, Therian, is to act like a person who, observing this, should attack both the professors of French and the inhabitants of Paris, and perhaps go on to deny the existence of France. Let us say once again that the magical language is nothing but a convenient system of classification to enable the magician to docket his experiences as he obtains them. That is true, right? Most of the things that he has talked about does not have real bearing. It is only through your experiences that you will unlock what he actually means. Yet, this is true also, that once the language is mastered, one can divine the unknown by study of the known. Just as one's knowledge of Latin and Greek enables one to understand some unfamiliar English word derived from those sources. Also, there is the similar case of the periodic law in chemistry, which enables science to prophesy, and so in the end, to discover, the existence of certain previously unsuspected elements in nature. So now we know when the periodic table rolled out. All discussions upon philosophy are necessarily sterile, since truth is beyond language. They are, however, useful if carried far enough, if carried to the point when it becomes apparent that all arguments are arguments in a circle. See The Soldier and the Hunchback, Equinox 1-1. The apparatus of human reason is simply one particular system of coordinating impressions. Its structure is determined by the course of the evolution of the species. It is no more absolute than the evolution of the species. It is no more absolute than the mechanism of our muscles is a complete type wherewith all other systems of transmitting force must conform. Muscles aren't the part that actually transmits the force. That would be the bones. That would be the leverage, which is fulcrum by your elbow, right? This is a lever. This is the fulcrum allowing the movement by the muscles. And so the muscles would not be a complete type, right? It does not even transfer force. It initiates force, but the force is transferred by the bones. It is transferred by the lever. That is the transfer of force. But discussions of the details of purely imaginary qualities are frivolous and maybe deadly. For the great danger of this magical theory is that the student may mistake the alphabet for the things which the words represent. An excellent man of great intelligence, a learned Kabbalist, once amazed Master Tarian by stating that the Tree of Life was the framework of the universe. It was as if someone had seriously maintained that a cat was a creature constructed by placing the letters C-A-T in that order. It is no wonder that magic has excited the ridicule of the unintelligent, since even its educated students can be guilty of so gross a violation of the first principles of common sense. The Tree of Life is quite literally the foundation. That is why it is called the Tree of Life. It is also called the Tree of Knowledge, which is a better appellation for it, but it begins with the realization and the rooting. It draws energy through the trunk into the central core, right? That is how the tree works. That is how your aura works. That is how elemental physics work, right? You have the trunk, you have the crown, right? The electrons would symbolize the crown. The trunk would be symbolized by the nucleus. The Tree of Life is the understanding. I have a tree of life, a tree of knowledge that surrounds me. You know, the crown, the roots, the trunk, the capillaries in the inside of the trunk, right? It is a direct correlation to you. It is a direct correlation to everything that lives. Trees have the tree of life. Animals have the tree of life. It is the representation of the auras, the chakras, moving the energy. It is the fundamental creation. Like, there's a reason why it is a fundamental part of all of the control systems, even Christianity. And to say that it is not is wild. But I'm pretty sure the Master Tyrion, right, is actually Aleister Crowley's other alias. Like, he has like 4 of them. Back to the text. The absurdity of any such disturbance of the arrangement of the paths is evident to any sober student from such examples as the following. Bina, the supernal understanding, is connected with Tifereth, the human consciousness. By Zane, Gemini, the oracles of the god or the intuition. That is, the attribution represents a psychological fact. To replace it by the devil is either humor or plain idiocy. Again, the card Fortitude, Leo, replaces majesty and mercy with strength and severity. What sense is there in putting death, the scorpion, in its stead? There are 20 other mistakes in the new wonderfully illuminated from on high attribution. The student can therefore be sure of 20 more laughs if he cares to study it. Hold on now. To replace it by the devil. Are you trying to throw shade on the Rider-Waite tarot deck? Because that's what it seems to me. I've got a news flash, right? If you are using the Teote deck, it is extremely unbalanced. It is horribly unbalanced, with no conception of what the actual intentionality behind the tarot should be. You may know what those things are, but you draw that knowledge from the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. You do not draw it from the Teote deck. The Teote deck is completely unbalanced. Like, completely. If you're using it, you're probably giving bad readings. For him to throw shade on White. Wow. A synopsis of the grades of the A Delta. A Delta is illustrative of the magical hierarchy in man, is given in Appendix 2. 1 star in sight. This should be read before proceeding with the chapter. The subject is very difficult. To deal with it in its full is entirely beyond the limits of this small treatise. You keep saying that. He has 4 parts to this book, multiple chapters, but yet he doesn't have the time or the inclination to include in this the greater understanding. It might be because he didn't have it. That would be my assumption. Further concerning the magical universe. All these letters of the magical alphabet referred to above are like so many names on a map. Man himself is a complete microcosm. Few other beings have this balanced perfection. Of course, every sun, every planet may have beings similarly constituted. Equally, of course, we have no means of knowing what we really are. We are limited to symbols, and it is certain that all of our sense perceptions give only partial aspects of their objects. Sight, for instance, tells us very little about solidity, weight, composition, electrical character, thermal conductivity, etc., etc. It says nothing at all about the very existence of such vitally important ideas as heat, hardiness, and so on. The impression which the mind combines from the senses can never claim to be accurate or complete. We have indeed learnt that nothing is in itself what it seems to be to us. Okay. You can get a certain sense from your senses. That is why we have senses. There are 5 of them for a reason. We are in 5D space. I wonder if that is a fucking coincidence. You have the ability to see, right? Seeing will not give you the sense of heat, except through mirages, which you can see, and through the auras of things, which you can see. Sound won't give you the idea of hardness, except from the echo if you strike something, which will allow you to. Touch will not allow you to... You see where I'm going with this? You have 5 senses for a reason. All of those 5 senses are here to detect something different in different ways, right? You can see the radiation of the heat. You can feel the radiation of the heat. That is 2 ways by which you can know that there is heat. Now, you're not going to get much clue to hardness, except for the fact that something appears to be solid, even though you never really touch it, remember? But that is the only idea of hardness that you will get, but you get that from touching something, right? You definitely get that from touching something. You can get that from the sound that it makes when it echoes from you touching it. That is 2 of those senses used to identify the same thing. Once again, he does not have an understanding of pretty much anything, right? You do have senses. Do not rely on any one of them, right? Confirm through the 5 of them the things that you observe, but they are observing things. They are serving a purpose. But when we speak of dealing with the planets in magic, the reference is usually not to the actual planets, but to the parts of the earth which are of the nature attributed to these planets. That is the only way of referring to them, right? Using the planets as a mimetic device so that you can remember things, perfectly acceptable. Actually attributing to those planets those actual things is fucking stupid. Thus, when we say that Nakiel is the intelligence of the sun, we do not mean that he lives in the sun, but only that he has a certain rank and character, and although we can invoke him, we do not necessarily mean that he exists in the same sense of the word in which our butcher exists. When we conjure Nakiel to visible appearance, it may be that our process resembles creation, or rather imagination, I would go with that one, more nearly than it does calling forth. The aura of a man is called the magical mirror of the universe, and so far as anyone can tell, nothing exists outside of this mirror. It is at least convenient to represent the whole as if it were subjective. It leads to less confusion, and as a man is a perfect microcosm, it is perfectly easy to remodel one's conception at any moment. He is this only by definition. The universe may contain an infinite variety of worlds inaccessible to human apprehension. Yet, for this very reason, they do not exist in the purpose of the argument. Man has, however, some instruments of knowledge. We may therefore define the macrocosm as the totality of things possible to his perception. As evolution develops these instruments, the macrocosm and microcosm extend, but they always maintain their mutual relation. Neither can possess any meaning except in terms of the other. Our discoveries are exactly as much of ourselves as they are of nature. America and electricity did, in a sense, exist before we were aware of them, but they are even now no more than incomplete ideas expressed in symbolic terms of a series of relations between two sets of inscrutable phenomena. Electricity, right, we'll go with electricity because electricity did exist, not in a sense, before you were aware of it. Electricity is a fundamental fundamental force. It is electromagnetic force of creation. It is how things are bound together. It did exist before you. 100%. Not in a sense, but in reality. Just because you were not here to observe it does not make a difference. When a bear shits in the woods, or a bear does shit in the woods, right? When a tree falls in the woods and no one is around to hear it, it still makes a sound. I know that there are philosophical arguments about whether or not that is true, but those are stupid. Right? It is exploring a concept, and that is never stupid, but the understanding that it doesn't is nihilism, right? It is only because I am here to observe that things exist is nihilism, and I am completely, 100% opposed to the concept of nihilism. I find that to be victim mentality and wrong in every single instance in which it is employed. And this is an extension of that, right? This is an extension of nihilism into the divine, which is wild. Back to the text. Now, there is a traditional correspondence which modern experiment has shown to be fairly reliable. There is a certain natural connection between certain letters, words, numbers, gestures, shapes, perfumes, and so on, so that any idea, or as we might call it, spirit, may be composed or called forth by the use of those things which are harmonious with it and express particular parts of its nature. That is kind of true, right? Everybody has this. If you hear a song from your childhood, it will bring back a memory. You can smell honeysuckle, for instance, and it'll bring back the image of a day that you spent in your childhood eating honeysuckle or blackberries or whatever it happens to be. There are cues that bring back memories, and that is what this is talking about, right? Mimetic devices in order to remember. Some of those are voluntary, some of them are not. Like we use a mimetic device for the planets. My very educated mother just served us 9, and we have to leave pizzas off these days. But that stands for the planets, right? Mercury, Venus, Earth. That is a mimetic device so that we can remember homes for the lakes, the Great Lakes in here, the Huron, Ontario, Michigan, right? We use these mimetic devices all of the time, and those are intentional. We use those on purpose. The other ones are not, right? The random scent or the random sound that brings back a memory is still a mimetic device. It's just not an intentional one. And so this is true. There is absolutely things that can trigger memories. These correspondences have been elaborately mapped into... Fuck. Every time he says something good, he shits on it. Elaborately mapped in book 777 in a very convenient and compendious form. So you are listing Almond is going to bring back this particular memory. Is that what you are trying to tell me? Because that is what this reads like, right? These correspondences have been elaborately mapped, means that you are detailing what they are, and that is, I smell this and I remember that, and that is not going to be the same between people. Sounds is going to be the same problem. You are not going to get the same thing from this song that I will. We had different experiences. And so to try to map this is stupid. Like high level stupid. Like extra stupid. That's like trying to map someone else's experiences. And not just someone else's, but everyone else's. What? It will be necessary for the student to make a careful study of this book in connection with some actual rituals of magic. For example, that the evocation of Tetherath, printed in Econox 1.3, pages 170 to 190, where he will see exactly why these things are to be used. I would not recommend looking that up. Of course, as the student advances in knowledge by experience, he will find a progressively subtlety in the magical universe corresponding to his own, and let it be said yet again. Not only is his aura a magical mirror of the universe, but the universe is a magical mirror of his aura. That is kind of true, right? The aura is the divine chakra. You have these internal chakras, and then you have one that surrounds you and holds you together. It is fed by the other 7 through the heart primarily, but the other ones do feed independently into it. And so it is the magical mirror that is you. It reflects your internal conflicts. Someone can observe things that are wrong with you inside of your divine aura that normally manifest according to the things that I understand. If you see, for instance, the color red, that indicates that there is an imbalance in the corresponding chakra for the color red, which would be the base. If it is yellow, it is going to be a sacral thing. If you are seeing anything in the chakra other than a perfectly balanced black and white in a checkerboardish pattern, according to the things that I understand, something is wrong, right? That indicates there is an imbalance through the chakra. There may be a multitude of them. If you see the rainbow, it is a complete imbalance. If you, however, see a perfectly balanced black and white surrounding, neither gray nor entirely black nor white, but in perfect balance, much like the checkerboard that the Masons use on all of their floors, because they don't understand why that is, but this is why that is. This is why they have the checkerboard floors. It is not something intrinsically evil. It is to let you know that you should be based, or your base, the thing you trod upon, the part that holds you together, should be balanced. That is the why that they lost through the course of time. And so it is a magical mirror. It is much less so in the reflection from the universe to you. While you are a reflection of the universe, you are but a small constituent in that universe. The universe is not here for you, but for all of us. And so you do have some part of reflecting into the universe, but there is more to that part than you. So while you are a reflection of the universe is less of a reflection of you. In this chapter, we are only able to give a very thin outline of magical theory because you do not have an understanding of it. Faint penciling by weak and wavering fingers for this subject may almost be said to be coextensive with one's whole knowledge. That is true. The knowledge of esoteric science is comically limited by the fact that we have had no access, except in the most indirect way, to any other celestial body than our own. We fixed that. In the last few years, the semi-educated have gotten an idea that they know a great deal about the universe, and the principal ground for their fine opinion of themselves is usually the telephone or the airship. It is pitiful to read the bombastic twaddle about progress which journalists and others, who wish to prevent men from thinking, put out for consumption. We know infinitesimally little of the material universe. Our detailed knowledge is so contemptibly minute that it is hardly worth reference. save that our shame may spur us to increased endeavor. That is all true, right? In the point of, we do not have the full understanding of the universe. We probably never will, right? We have, however, gone to space. If you do not believe so, you are incorrect. If you do not believe we have been to the moon, you are incorrect. That you can prove it to yourself. There is a mirror planted on the moon. You can shoot a laser at it. You can get the return. That is an experiment you can do for yourself. The astronauts placed that there. We did not shoot it into space and it fixed itself in this position by itself. That is not a thing. You can prove to yourself the curvature of the Earth by simple experimentation. There are a variety of ways. If you believe that the Earth is flat, you are wrong. I say these things unequivocally because I have knowledge about these things. I was participating in several of them, right? I went around the world. My observation that the world is round is from observation, not speculation. I have been involved in the launch of missiles, not directly, but tangentially. I know that we do launch them. I have been a part of navigating by satellites. I know that we have actually launched satellites. There are people that do not believe that. There will always be people who do not know. There will always be people who believe things that are a little bit wild. Believing that there is a dome placed above a flat plane when everything else in the entire universe is spherical is stupid, right? High level stupid, not little level stupid, big level stupid. And it is things that you can objectively prove to yourself. You can do the experimentation for the flat earth. Every single time that a flat earther tries, they prove themselves wrong, and then they say there's something wrong with the test. And so we don't have a full knowledge of things. There are things that we may never learn, but we have gotten more knowledge since then, right? Right. Such knowledge as we have got is of a very general and abstruse, of a philosophical and almost magical character. The footnote is, knowledge is, moreover, an impossible conception. All propositions come ultimately back to A is A. I would have to see his argument on that, but it is probably like, you will never have full knowledge, and so it is an impossible conception to think that you would have full knowledge, but you can have partial knowledge. Back to the text. This consists principally of the conceptions of pure mathematics. It is therefore almost legitimate to say that pure mathematics is our link with the rest of the universe and with God. Now, the conceptions of magic are themselves profoundly mathematical. No. No, it is not. While some numbers do have significance, no math is necessary. The method of operation in magic is based on this in very much the same way as the laws of mechanics are based on mathematics. So far, therefore, as we can be said to possess a magical theory of the universe, it must be a matter solely of fundamental law, with a few simple and comprehensive propositions stated in very general terms. The 8 laws of creation. There are 8. They fit, much like the 7 different virtues and vices all contain the other things. Everything fits within those 8 laws. I might expend a lifetime in exploring the details of one plane, just as an explorer might give his life to one corner of Africa, or a chemist to one subgroup of compounds. Such a detailed piece of work may be very valuable, but it does not, as a rule, throw light on the main principles of the universe. Its truth is the truth of one angle. It might even lead to error. If some inferior person were to generalize from too few facts, imagine an inhabitant of Mars who wished to philosophize about the Earth and had nothing to go but by the diary of some man at the North Pole. But the work of every explorer on whatever branch of the tree of life the caterpillar he is after may happen to be crawling, is immensely helped by a grasp of general principles. Every magician, therefore, should study the Holy Kabbalah. Once he has mastered the main principles, he will find his work grow easy. I am doing it opposite. I have already had the work grow easy. Right? It is remarkably simple, the things that are within this 25,000 page word book, right? It is tiny, it is small, there are 8 chapters. You can read the entire thing in 2 hours. You will read it more than once. I am, again, planning on studying the Kabbalah. I will tell you afterwards whether I think that every magician should, right? You should, in every single instance, be seeking the most knowledge that you can, even if that knowledge is incorrect, right? We are reading through Liber IV. Most of this knowledge is incorrect. But by reading incorrect knowledge and by dismissing incorrect knowledge, you can find the good knowledge. You can differentiate between what is true and what is not. Solvitur ambulando, which does not mean call the ambulance. What does it mean? Why don't you give us the actual fucking meaning, right? It is solved by walking. So get out and do. That is that. If you take nothing else, right? I say this too much, but if you don't take nothing else, get out and do. Feel the experience. It is by the experience that you gain the knowledge. It is not by the mere hearing, but by the doing that you reach the understanding. The understanding allows you to rise to the challenges which arise into your life, which allows you to reach the harvest of those things. That's going to bring us to the end of the study of Chapter 0. Hopefully I brought a little bit of enlightenment and not too much confusion to a series of somewhat difficult topics. I understand I have some unconventional beliefs, and I have a tendency to step on toes when I relay those. It is not intentional, but I do not apologize for it. If you are willing to take Aleister Crowley at his word, then do your thing. You will not be happy in my studies. I am going to shit upon him because he very well deserves it. And not as a person, but as the disseminator of incorrect knowledge. If you are out here telling people incorrect things, it is my duty to point that out. There may come a time fairly soon when I will be doing that real time with some of the people out here in the real world who are telling some very incorrect things, some of whom you may watch. But regardless, the discernment between the things that I know are true, the things that might be true, and the things that are absolutely verifiably false are important distinctions to make. And while many of the things that he says in here can be true, some of them are true, many more of them are absolutely not. And the use of complicated mathematics in order to do magical practices is not a necessity. Right? We talked about the needed and necessary. It might be needed that you use the butter knife, but you would be better off with an axe. But you have to have the sharp tool. I tried to narrow it down in this book to the sharp edge, to the parts that are absolutely necessary and not necessarily subjective to my understanding. These things should be fairly applicable. I tried to keep them as general as possible and to not put into it too much my experience. I mean, that's hard to do because the entire book is based upon my experience. Chapter 0 in my book is where it came from. It is my experience. But as we get further along in the book, I try to be more objective in the presentation of the information. This is how it seems to work. It has worked for me, right? I do not make equivocations about whether it has been effective in my life. I have the proof, right? Not the subjective assumptions, but the actual physical proof. I can talk to you, that is the proof. I can move my elbow, or my shoulder, I can move my shoulder at 100% capacity. I have strength again. That is proof. I can bend and stretch and twist and run. That is proof. These are physical proofs because I was injured, right? And not just a little injured, very injured. I am no longer in that condition. Has that been verified by science? No, I'm not going to go pay for an MRI to prove that my discs are no longer bulging and herniated. But I no longer have the physical symptoms of those things. That was a 15-year process, right? 2011 is when I got injured. It was right about now. And so I say these things, I differentiate between these things because I have done some things. I cannot give you my experience. I can only relate to you the way that I found the way. But the way that I have found is an effective one, and you are more than welcome to tag along, right? You are more than welcome to come on my path or one right next to it. Use the guidepost that I set down. I do not claim to have the only way, but I do claim that this is not the way. If you like what I'm doing over here, let me know down below. Give me a like, a share, a follow. Throw me a comment. Whether you agree or disagree with anything that was said, put it in the box down below. And if it remains respectful, it gets to remain up. If you really like what I'm doing over here, hit me with that super thanks. Consider joining for a membership or picking up a copy of my book. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. God loves you. You are perfect, whole, and complete just the way that you are. And this has been Pitt's Take. Peace.